Yo, yo. So welcome to another episode of the iPodcast. I have Rob Tringali with me today. How's it going, Rob?
Well, it's great, Bryce. It's really great. Shooting a lot of stuff these days, you know.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
but I
so
don't know if you
busy.
want to but I guess it gives me an opportunity to look through some old stuff and archive some stuff that I've been putting off for the last 30 years or
Yeah, have you found that to be a lot?
so. It's daunting. Yeah, it's daunting. I get into it and but I've been literally, I got filing cabinets of just stuff that I just been trying to like edit through and just pick out the best stuff and start with that and make some piles and you know
Jeez,
yeah,
where to
it's a lot.
start?
Yeah, it's yeah, I started and then I get about an hour into it and I get distracted, but I'm trying, but
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it is what it is.
hmm So
Part of the
tell us a little bit about yourself. If somebody doesn't know who you are.
Oh my God. Well, it's Rob Tringali, and I've been a photographer for God, like 32 years now. Um, how far do you want to go back?
I mean, start from. I'm one to hear how you kind of got going.
Yeah, well, my dad actually started the first one of the first photo stock businesses, a company called Focus on Sports when I was 7 years old, maybe back
Mm,
in the mid 70s. So we're talking like 1976. And my dad was a photographer, but he wasn't like a sports guy. He was more of a portrait. He wasn't even like a big sports fan. But
mm,
his partner Mickey Palmer, at the time, who shot almost every Super Bowl at this point. But they got together and they formed this agency called Focus on Sports. So I was around the business when I was a kid, and I would go through slides on their light box and my off days in summertime, and I went to a couple of Super Bowls when I was a kid and World Series. So I was around sports and photography as a kid, and for whatever reason, I didn't really. I just didn't take photography as a kid. My dad gave me a camera as a as a Christmas gift. It just wasn't something that was in. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to play,
yeah.
so that was really my biggest uh, the thing that I was hoping to actually play professionally. But when you don't make a high school baseball team when you're a junior, you kind of your dream is pretty much squashed. So
hmm
anyway, I graduated high school and I wanted to be around sports, and that's where he had some photographers. He had another agency that he started later on, and I basically went to a game, assisted a photographer, a friend, Sky Mitchell Rebel, and we flew down to DC, did a Redskins game, and I remember walking on the field and I was just hooked as like a 16-year-old, and I was like, I gotta do this. And I literally had no photography ability at all. So, and
hmm
then that started me, that really, from when I graduated high school, I went to a school of visual arts for a few days and told them I wanted to be a sports photographer. And they looked at me like I was, they didn't even know what that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
Like,
see that.
yeah, they were like, "Nah, we don't. That's not what we teach you."
hmm
So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a job. I got a job at my stepdad's company on Wall Street. I worked this night job, Monday to Friday. Made all this money. I mean, made money, and I spent everything on like camera equipment and film, and then I was like, I'm just gonna jump into this photography thing, and I'm gonna learn on the go, and like it was all stock photography then. It was just all spec work, and it was it was a cool time. Cool time to be a photographer where you just made your own rules and you made your own schedule, and you just went out there, and the object was to shoot as many things as you can and sell it to like I said, my dad had the agency, so I had a good into clients and being
hmm
able to sell stuff. But it was a wild west back then. There was no there was really no Getty Images. There was no license. Nike wanted to come and buy stuff from Gatorade or card
Yeah.
companies, or it was so the object was shoot shoot as much stuff as you can and just basically sell it to as many places as you can, and you finance the whole thing yourself, your airfares and your film and your processing, And it was quite expensive. It was, airfares and film, film and
But
processing
you
for a
were
weekend.
making it back pretty
We
much
were making,
before you.
it was like I said, it was wild, wild west. It was great. It was a great time. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, people were spending big money for, even card photography, it was, hundreds of dollars for just a back of a card, a little thumbnail shot. It was pretty, I remember when I was like 20 years old, a guy, maybe young 20s, where card companies would come into the office, spend a weekend, take 300 images and just write us like a $40,000 check.
Wow.
I mean, that was cool. It was like I was a young kid, and it was awesome. And like I said, you had your baseball schedule made out, you had your football schedule made out, and so you would say like, Michigan's playing on a Saturday, and then the Bears are playing on a Sunday, and you just had this, you had your whole year was almost mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
Bought the airfares in advance, and it was like a group of us. It was maybe like a group of guys that would just go, and if Barry Sanders, for example, was playing outside somewhere in Tampa, like there was this group of people that would show up and whatnot. So, but it was cool. It was like, every big college game, every big pro game, baseball season, you throw in some tennis, golf, whatever. It was a fun time. And then, that lasted probably, from 18 to about 28, maybe, maybe mid to, 25, 26 years old, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's probably in the mid 90s, like 96, 97. And that kind of business was, you felt like it was, a lot of card companies were going away, and magazines and poster companies. So, and then, the talk of like digital photography coming around, and that's kind of at the same point. I guess I was getting bored of it at the time, and I wanted to really become a photographer, like a sign photographer, someone someone's going to pay me to go someplace, places, and be more of a storyteller than just a guy. Because, when I look back at my stuff, it was great, but it was very, isolated action.
Yeah.
It's just 600 millimeter lenses, 400 millimeter lenses, tight, vertical kind of card photography look, just, head to toe kind of stuff. So it was a lot of that. And I guess at the point, I was kind of like looking at the magazines, and I was like, I want to kind of figure out how I could become more of a photographer like that. And it's kind of, and at the same time, that's when like ESPN magazine was starting up around 90. I think they started in 98. And so around 97, we worked on some prototypes with them. And, I knew Sports Illustrated, even though Sports Illustrated is a dream as somebody who grew up as in my age. If you grew up in that, the 80s, 70s, 80s, it was something that you got every week. But I knew like SI had their guys in New York, and there was really no real path for me to go to work for them where I was living. And then ESPN was this new, magazine I was starting up, and it was a little more hipper, a little more on a younger thing that kind of like, intrigued me. And so I went for it. And so, 97, 98, 98, the magazine came out, and I started to probably do a lot of my work with them, like every big event, every, tons of assignments. And it really kind of melded, it really kind of, that kind of relationship. And they had great editors. My buddy Jim Serber's, awesome editor there. He's been there since the beginning. And, I remember just, because when I first started, I was trying to just make sure I didn't miss anything and whatnot. And he was like, hey man, we just, we're hiring you just to be you. We want your story. We want your angle. We want your vision. And that really kind of developed me as a photographer going to games. I started to kind of look at things away from the pack a little differently, looking, just trying to create my thing. And, again, like that relationship over time, kind of made a big difference in where I am now, as far as just like, something that, it was a great experience. And so that's pretty much the, and then, 32 years later, and a bunch of big events and whatnot. And here we are.
Here we are, 2020. I kind of want to go back to something that you were talking about, because I feel like it's something that I've been thinking about as a photographer. The situation where you're talking, the politics of, everything kind of being a free-for-all, and then it kind of starts to become, now licensing and stuff like that. And you have Getty and AP that enter the picture that kind of, control a lot of that, that world. Right. How did you feel about that once that started happening?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it crushed, when they first started, it crushed my business model at the time. It was like I said, it was the wild, wild west. And like, I remember clients would call us up and we would just throw out numbers and they'd be like, it sounds great. And, you didn't have to go through anybody. So yeah, it definitely was a crushing blow. But I think we also realized when digital started to happen, our days of that kind of like stock photographer was numbered. At least I did. I mean, I knew, and I think people do it today. That's kind of where, my head was like, I needed to be more of a, I wanted to be more of an assignment photographer and get paid and then own my, then also it was a big thing to own my rights too. So it was cool to work for like an ESPN or whoever it might be, because, we retained, my rights to those images. And I probably own 90 to 95% of what I've shot over my career, which is, to me, is a big
That's
deal.
a big number.
Yeah, it is. So, and, you look at it now and, it's kind of cool. I mean, has a value. Did I think I'd be retired by now when I was 20 years old? Yeah. Because when I first started, the guys who were shooting, I would see what they were, what they were making like later on in their career. And I was like, yeah, there'll be a time where someone might offer me, a few $1 million for my collection.
Yeah.
And I can just like wash my hands and just go do some other stuff. So yeah, that was when I was 25 and I knew what I was starting to shoot and I knew the kind of collections I was shooting. There was no way, there was no other way to think than saying, hey, if I put 30 years into this, I might, I might be able just to walk away. Someone might offer me a decent dollar, for my collection. And I might make the decision at that point to, sell it off or, make some sort of deal. But, that didn't happen and that's never going to happen. But at least it's still cool to have, still have those images in my possession and, own the rights to them. And, like I syndicate my stuff with Getty and, it's a good relationship and, it is what it is. I mean, you always wish it was better, but just like the music business or any other kind of syndicating business, there's changes and you just kind of roll with them and you make the best of it. And you just, you can't dwell on stuff. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure musicians look at, things that are downloaded for pennies and, but the better ones, the better one, the better one, you're right, legally right. So the better ones kind of figure it out and you just have to move on. At one point, you're going to, there's a point you're going to get screwed.
Right.
But it can't define you and you can't just sit there and you just have to kind of just figure it out your next move.
I think it's kind of similar to, it's similar in the way that people are going to have to shift how they're doing things.
I think if you're smart, yes. I mean, it is. I think there has to be an intelligence that, and again, I don't fault anybody for when they first start in their career to do certain things to get your stuff out there. But there's a point you have to start to look at it as a business and what benefits you from a financial standpoint and try to balance that artistic financial world, which is, a very difficult thing to balance. I mean, it's but there are realities to it.
Yeah. And so you're based in New York, right?
Yeah, live in New Jersey. Yeah, if you want to, be technical. Yeah.
So you've been around all those good moments with the Yankees.
Yeah.
All the Northeastern teams.
Yeah.
So like looking back so I think personally looking through your portfolio, your baseball work stands out quite a bit. And I think you're talking about how, you're getting cut at your high school baseball team, like how that relates to the type of work I see from you when it comes to baseball. And I looked at your work quite a bit, like before going into baseball myself last year. But so explain that relationship with you in baseball.
I guess, I guess it was my first love as a kid. Just playing and going to games and you go to Yankee Stadium when I was, when I went to games, Yankees were 70s. So they were winning World Series back 77, 78. So it was a big deal for me. So that kind of, I mean, I remember going to a World Series game when I was, 8 years old and going to school the next day with like a World Series program. And so baseball to me was always, a love. But I loved all sports. I mean, I watched golf when I was 8 years old. I mean, I was one of those idiots who just try to consume like, Daytona 500, whatever it was, Wimbledon, like, it didn't matter. But baseball was always, I think because I played it and I liked it, and I was good at it when I was younger. I was good at, like, it was like 10, 11, around there. I was pretty good at it. And then, through that, but honestly, when I first started, football to me was the most exciting. When you're a sports photographer, to me, football was the exciting thing to shoot. I mean, it wasn't baseball. It was like, football and the
so
action.
much movement and
Yeah,
stuff like
it was just, So football to me, I think every sports photographer thinks like, football is really like, the be all end all of like action photography, which I was really into. The first, bunch of years, it was all about the action and just like these great, and it was different. It was like, manual focus, and just to get a great image of a guy flipping over, like manual focus was, hard. And when you got it, it was, like something very cool about it. But my sophisticated side came out when I started shooting baseball later on, when it became more about the off moments and just the more of those subtle moments around the dugout, and just things that were, where you didn't get in football so much. Like it was, but again, I felt like it was my, when I got to a point in my life where I was starting to look at things a little differently than just like the pure action. Like it was fun just to find guys, hanging out by the dugout or behind, and, during the course of a game or pre-game stuff, or, and baseball then baseball, like to me was, every stadium was different. Every backdrop was different color palettes. And then, they didn't wear helmets. So you saw more of their, faces, and you had a little more personality. And then people got to know you, and it was a lot easier to interact with, and it was a lot easier to get people to, or, not they were posing for you, but they would, they weren't like shy about stuff. And so, as I, like I said, probably the last 10, 15 years, baseball became a real passion from a photography standpoint, which it wasn't. And I honestly, I look back at my old baseball stuff, and I wish that, I like, shot a little wider, and I wish I shot a little bit more of that personality stuff. Because like, there were stadiums that I would shoot in, like, old Tiger Stadium and old, Cleveland Stadium, that had these great, these great backdrops and this great just, sense of space kind of thing, where I just totally didn't take advantage of. It just bums me out. It really, I was still like card, like tight stuff, and, like, but yeah, it would have been nice to, I got a few frames, but not to where I wish that I was thinking that way when I first started. It was, I thought one way, and it was just, but took me a while to understand like the coolness of baseball from just an artistic perspective. And so, yeah, I appreciate it, and again, like I do, because like, to me, it's like, and baseball is, great. And you know what I'm talking about. I think, like there's certain aspects of baseball that you get that other sports really don't offer you those.
Much more personal. It has like this personal quality to it.
Yeah.
Evan would always say it's very nostalgic. Like it's very timeless thing. And like, I don't know, of all the sports that I've been around, like how many times I've actually gotten to know players in those other sports other than baseball.
You really don't. You don't have the opportunity. And, when you think about like the old Root stuff and Garrick stuff and the Mantle and the it's like these great shots around the dugout with just their faces, and it's just there's a difference to it than what other sports kind of give to you. Like there's that intimacy to it, and again, it's what I've gravitated to in the last bunch of years. So
let me see if I can try to pull up one of your pictures. Second. Oh, well, maybe not. For some reason. So I am updating my computer, and I'm on this old 2011, 12 MacBook, so it's not like letting me do anything. I didn't know it was going to.
It's like you're pushing the limits there, right?
Yeah. But hopefully I'll be able to get to that too soon. But I was just like I was going to try to pull up some of like your Derek Jeter hopping out of the dugout, which I
last
can
game.
hopefully in editing this I can put over this picture, but and then the one of Judge getting his haircut. And that light.
Cool. Yeah, that's a cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that stuff. Actually, my neighbor just mentioned that to me. Like, I think I posted like a decade in photos, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was one of his favorite shots, because it is cool to see those moments of that are just completely behind the curtain. And that was like they were doing a Fox commercial, and again, it's one of those things when you start to know people, and most maybe. You just ask for a favor. Say, hey, man, can I just pop in there for seconds? And,
mm-hmm.
like the Fox guy knows you, and the MLB security guy knows you. And
mm-hmm. And that's another thing about baseball, too, is like if there's so many games, you get to know so many people. Like you become like teammates with Fox people.
Yeah. When I first started, the guys like Neil Leifer and Walter Yost and whatnot, like you realize they got to do stuff that, because they were just around, and people, something that you don't do when you just first start, people aren't going to give you that opportunity. But as you get older, you deserve, you earn your cred. People will like kind of let you do things that maybe they wouldn't let other people do, which is, you should earn that after a while. You should earn that ability, and you take advantage of it when you can. And that was one of those situations where, I saw the Fox guy, the Fox producer, said, hey man, anyway, you could let me in. And I was like, yeah, you come in for, give me 2 minutes good. I said, yeah, it's perfect. And that was, that's one of those shots where you just, like, no one else. I love when I make shots that no one else has. I've always tried to get away from the pack, and it's hard to do in sports. It's really difficult to, you're in a photo box a lot of times with the same, the people shooting the same thing. So it is, from a sports perspective, it's nice to have a picture that no one else has. From this is just mine. No one else.
That's
the Jeter, the Jeter one too. Probably I haven't seen that angle myself. Maybe it's somebody else, but I haven't seen it. So.
It felt very unique, and like the way that he it's like he's falling out of the dugout.
Yeah, it was weird. I shot so much of him that year. It was his last year, and you knew he was retiring, and the last 2 months, I probably shot almost every game, and but I started looking at him the last few weeks, and I don't remember him doing that kind of like that move that he would kind of look over his shoulder, look into the crowd, and kind of pop out of the dugout.
Yeah.
And so it was always, and again, like, observation to me from a photography perspective is, really important. Just
absolutely.
It's just, maybe you don't have the camera ready that second, but you always need to kind of have your head up and just looking around and pay attention. And, and I started paying attention to what he was doing, and, I knew we weren't going to be able to sit there, so I made sure I had a remote that day, and I just did. It was like the story behind that is like I put the remote there. We got to the stadium that day. And none of us knew what was how they were going to let us let us shoot, at least the pregame stuff. But got word that they were going to let us shoot from the first base photo box of him coming straight towards us as he. But I still wanted that angle from low, looking up with the stadium and the facade and whatnot. And so I put a remote there. And I remember one of the Yankee PR guys looked at it and said, hey, Rob, you're going to have to move this. Because it really wasn't in the way. Like, no one was going to cut the dugout that quickly and trip over it.
Yeah.
But, he was being a little bit, I think, just overly cautious about, like, hey man, someone might stumble on this. And I think I gave him this look of like, you ain't moving that thing. I think he looked at me like, all right, and but he did me a favor. He actually stood right near it, so nobody would nobody was going to run over. But if somebody was being overly cautious, he stood right near it. So he kind of helped me out from that perspective. And but I remember I shot the frame of him coming at us, and had the pocket wizard, and shot the frame that I really wanted was from the remote shot. And I don't do a lot of remote stuff. It's not it's not my thing. It's like it's never really. I've never been a remote guy. I've always wanted to be behind the camera, but for certain moments, and that was one of them. But it was cool to to look at the back of the camera right after that, see that frame. I was
I'm
like,
sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect, because in the frame it has the thank you, Derek, or something like that. I haven't seen it, but it's like, it was like, man, I couldn't have produced it any better than it came out.
Yeah.
And just him being who he was, and he was the kind of guy in my, the career that, he was like the perfect, he came up when I was a young kid. I was like 25 maybe. And so I shot him in spring training when he's an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid, and didn't see him win 5 World Series and retire in my, basically the same age. I'm older than him, but not that much, by much. But so we kind of lived the same era and the same age group, and it was cool to see it kind of come
work
down
out
to
that
that.
way.
Yeah, and then, and to put that little stamp on, because you have, you shoot a guy, you shoot all his big moments, and there's a little pressure on you. His last game, you're like, I have to come away with, I gotta get a great image of this. Like, this is, a New York legend, Yankee legend, and that puts you in a whole different stratosphere as far as, and you just like, so there was, as far as pressure goes, that was a game that, you just knew that you just had to make a frame from. And I did make, a few of them, which I was happy with.
And it only takes a few,
Hey, that's it, man. I shot for 32 years, and, there aren't that many great frames that you're there and you have the opportunity to make it. Just the reality of it. It's just, they don't happen that often. Like these, these epic moments and these epic frames, they just don't happen that often. So, you cherish them when you get them.
Right.
You definitely do,
Yeah. Do you give yourself a hard time if you don't get like a specific shot?
Yeah. I mean, I think you learn to live with them, and but there's 2 or 3 that just crush me every time I think about them. I mean, every time. I mean, like, I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and be like, I had that moment back. So you don't have it back, they just, whatever, 2 probably were my fault, 2 like somebody got in my way, or whatever it might be, like the Odell Beckham picture. I mean, I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Like I was shooting a Cowboys story that day, and I just happened to be in the end zone. I was ready to go and shoot the Cowboys offense when they got the ball back, and I'm just messing around, and I got this 400 millimeter lens, and and I'm just going, like Manning goes back to pass. And, if I was in normal game mode, like I would have the 7,200, I would, but I was just messing around with the Giants offense. And I've made great pictures over my years of over the shoulder catches, tight, and it was one of those frames that just happened. And I grabbed a frame, but, when I think about it all the time, it's like, it would have been awesome if it was wider. Was just like, and, you just kick yourself a little bit. That's one. There's a few others, but yeah, you the therapy sessions help, and just. Well, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I think you're in the wrong business if it doesn't hurt you. It's gotta sting, because that's kind of the cool thing about being a sports photographer is there is no safety net. There is no like do-over. There's no like, oh yeah, hey, let's do that again. I really like that. Or hey, can you give me that pose again? Or can you, or hey, let's move the light. Let's move the light a little bit. Or let's, there is no. That's it. It happens. It's over. There's no do-over. So, there is part of the allure of being a sports photographer that there is that adrenaline rush, and there is that coolness when you do get it, because it's like you go, you hang out with your buddies after the game and you're having some beers, and like, you feel awesome about it. Like you just like you felt like you played, and like you do. There's no other way to think about it. Like it's like, yeah, I made an awesome picture, like and it works the other way too. And you really, the ones that you don't make it, like, they sting forever. And like I said, I always will say, if it doesn't hurt, then maybe you're in the wrong business. It should hurt, and you shouldn't want to miss those. But inevitably, you shoot a long time, just like a relief pitcher. You're gonna give up a game winner every once in a while. And you just have to, you got to move on though.
Yeah, there's been definitely a couple times where I've like missed things. Like I remember last year Strasburg hitting a home run against us, and everybody's asking for it right after. I'm like, I wasn't paying attention to, I mean, it was a pitcher.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
But it's like kind of going into the mindset later on that day or the next game to kind of be like, okay, I gave this one up. Let's, focus a little bit harder and try to get make up for it.
It should, right. Exactly. It's the only thing you can do. It's just like, all right, just do better next time. But it should hurt. And then it's kind of, you can't have the highs without the lows. I mean, it's just, you have that, you can't have it both ways. So, and the highs are great, but, they don't come without disappointments. So you have to be able to live with them and move on and just, learn from them. But
Absolutely.
They do hurt.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So one thing I kind of want to talk about, kind of tailing off from kind of having that access with these athletes and other situations, and not so much from a standpoint of like asking the Fox guy, like, hey, can I get 2 minutes with you? We've talked about this before where, if you start to build relationships with people in, with certain organizations and you have ideas, like not being afraid to be like, hey, like I have this idea, I'd like, kind of pitch it to them and see what they think.
Yeah.
Because you've gotten plenty of work off of that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't have to talk about the same thing, but the stuff I did with the Rockies in spring training was literally based off that, where, I spent a bunch of years in spring training just doing my normal stuff. And, you show up sometimes for a shoot at 6 a.m, because, I tell you to be there. And then you realize there's a guy there's a guy in the weight room at 5:30, and he's, and there's the chef guy. And then I remember pitching that story to ESPN. So, hey, you know what, it'd be cool to do all these images before 9 a.m. Like it was an old Army commercial. I don't know if you, that we do before, we do more before 9 a.m. than you do all day kind of thing. So it was kind of like the genesis of that idea was like, hey, let's just tell this whole story between, what baseball players do in spring training before 9 a.m. They love the idea to pitch. And then the hard part comes in where you have to kind of go up to the PR guy and say, you need full access. And, it's not something they just grant you and they just do. And, so you have to kind of, make a good, you got to put your salesman hat on and tell them this is a great story. And you try to rally up some other people in the, that you might know in the team to rah-rah the idea a little bit. Like the equipment guys, like, yeah, it's a great idea. We could, it was really cool. That's a cool story. And so I think it was Warren Miller who was the PR guy for the Rockies, and so he had to talk to his people, and it's so he gave, they finally were okay, finally let me. But it was like the first day, it was like making sure they're on top of you, like making sure that you're not doing anything crazy. But at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, I'm here to tell a story. Like, you don't want to take a story on and be told what not to do, or there might be a thing that might be off limits, but you really don't want to be censored
right
while you're
starting to tell their story.
Yeah, right. It's not a marketing piece. It's a my vision, this pitch piece. It's not like, hey, let's so so there's a little tricky thing, especially when someone's giving you access. But once they give you access, you're hoping that they let you do what you need to do. And it's one of those things where you just have to kind of understand the terrain a little bit. Like, remember the first day, it was like, oh, the weight room was off limits and this is off limits. And all right, first day, cool. All right, I don't need to do that. But by the second day, when had a little conversations. Hey, man, there's some really cool stuff in the weight room when the sun comes up, and I think it's and again, you do the first day, you kind of like, if you have like a week to work with, you can kind of, you don't have to kind of rush it, but deep down, I'm gonna get the weight room shots. Like in your head, like they're not gonna let me not do that. And but you I think that's like where experience comes in, and you just how to like get to the point where they trust you, which is trust that and they they know you, and but I think there's a point where you have to kind of know when to like put your foot on the throttle or take it off. And I remember him saying, hey, I would love to get some of those shots. And then eventually, I do remember a shot, like I was with the GM is in this like, closed door meeting with the, his staff, and, I'm taking pictures, and I don't think he was really that interested in me being there, and yeah, he was definitely not into the story. And but again, like at that point, you just have to kind of just roll with it. And he just was like, looking at me like, what's this guy doing? Like, and but you take a few minutes, you get your picture, and you get out, and and again, that's, to me, it was like one of those stories where, and I've really loved those. That's, I've talked about this a lot, I think, lately. It's just shooting sports for so long, but being able to find stories like that and pitch stories like that, get the access, and and then use the ability to not only take the pictures, but the whole the sale pitch and the execution is a fun process. And going forward, I prefer to do more of those things than I do just go shoot a game. And or if I'm at a game, I like to know that there's some sort of story behind it, or it's just not just
not just action.
It's not action. It's just like to me, there's like not to say I'm there's days I really enjoy doing it, but it is a balance to me. There's a balance to like I want to do my share of just the action stuff, but I also like to know that I'm doing my fair storytelling just as well.
Do you, when you were talking about pretty much being like a fly on the wall in those situations, I feel like, I still have some time to learn how to be more of a fly on the wall, and I know there's lots of other photographers out there that are wanting to take advantage of those situations, but they feel like if they are put in that situation, that they're not going to be as they're not going to blend in very well.
Yeah.
And that's like one of my things sometimes in my head that I think about, like, I'm not going to go into the dugout and, do any of that, because I know that one person's going to look at me and be like, get the hell out of here.
I totally, I spent my whole, early on career thinking that way. I was afraid to even, maybe it was a different time, but I remember guys were just not that keen, the McGuires and the Griffies and the Bonds, like, they would easy, Albert Bell, and, they would get that effing camera out of my face, like I don't see that anymore. But I was intimidated when I first started. So, but also it was an age thing too, where now I look at guys and I'm like, I could be your dad, so I'm not gonna take any crap from you. But but I know I could totally hear what you're saying. There's a point where you're just like, hey, I'm just I'm just not ready for that yet, or I'm not sure of myself yet.
Yeah, you I think feel it out.
Yeah, and I think it's just that comes in time. I think just to me, it's just like learning what little small talk and trying to find and if there's a guy that I want to shoot that I don't know, like I might just do some research of like what he likes and what he if there's a watch he's wearing or a cool thing, there's a tattoo or something that you could have some sort of conversation with about, like, hey man, it's like, kind of why that's cool. Guys are into their watches, guys are into their tattoos, guys are into, you can always find something that you could start a conversation with. And I think there's there's benefits to that. And, I think, without being phony, but, I think, it's pretty genuine and, but there's always to me, there's always somewhere there's always a starting point to, building that rapport up and, seeing where it goes. And I think it's important, as opposed to just like, and I kind of always, I'm still at the point where I still ask somebody's permission if I'm doing something, which is kind of, nothing's really off limits, but if a guy's in a dugout, putting, pine tar in his bat before a game, I won't just like go up to him and just start shooting on and be, hey man, you cool with this? Like, just like a way of being like, hey man, if it's not cool, just let me know. But, and 98% of the time guys are like, yeah, whatever. But I think it's a cool, like, I think it's a professional thing to say. This is if they're not cool, some guys are in their zone. Some guys just don't want to be bothered. And so I think there's ways to approach something that, helps the situation out as a, but again, everyone has their own way of doing it. And I think I figured out, it's something that you figure out from a personal level, like what works for you, what doesn't. And it's, it comes down to like what's natural to you and, kind of person you are. But I've always been, socially, when I, very introverted and at least when I started. So it was tough to like even do that, even to like, get to the point where I was confident enough to at least start to, start a conversation with a major athlete, a major superstar. So, But again, that's, some guys reach. It honestly took me a long time. I was definitely not natural at it, and I've gotten way better at it now. Like I said, I don't care as much, but I'm still very respectful and try to be as professional as I can. But again, it's I think you go by your own speed and pace, whatever that is.
I think one thing that I've found that to be. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I'm having again another problem with this old ass computer. I'm having to use headphones plugged in because
Gotcha.
nothing works Bluetooth wise. But one thing that I've found to be pretty cool, because with baseball, again, you have this. It's really easy to get pretty close to guys and build that rapport over 100 and something games. But with football and other sports, it's a little bit hard to, because the only time you really get to see them most of the time is during a game. But I found it, like, this is kind of like something that anybody listening that likes to shoot football or anything like that, is a really good tip, is kind of research where guys are working out in the summer.
Right.
Because
so
because a lot of them want like pictures of them working out in the summertime.
You guys are lucky that didn't happen when I was younger. Like these guys want content of themselves for their own personal social, and then so you can definitely take advantage of just giving this, getting the access and giving back, and then obviously building a relationship that leads into something else. And something that I didn't have grown, as a selling point, but I can see that that's a great, it's a good idea where find, and that 95% of these guys are gonna be like all about it, like, hey man, I'll totally give you some time. And then again, like when they get to know you, and the reality is, and when it comes down to like even sports guys, it's like they're just regular people, man. They're regular dudes, man. They like most of the people I know, they're married, they have kids, they take their kids to school, and they got the same bullshit problems. They obviously make more money, but their reality is their lives they're really not that different than you and I. So and once you start to realize that they put their pants on the same way, and they have issues, and
the conversations become much more organic, and
their kids have their little kids have Cheerios over the backseat of the cars, and just like same bullshit stuff that a dad has with their kids. And so there's little nuances that you could always touch on that you realize they're just regular people.
It's something that it's so wild to see sometimes with younger photographers, and how I think everybody might have that stage at first, with that oogling, like, oh wow, this is so and so right in front of me. But I think that wears off.
I think once you realize that, I guess I wasn't that, like I said, my dad was in the business, and I was around it a little bit when I was younger, so I was never that starstruck by guys, but it just wasn't my personality to. Yes, are there 10 guys in this world that I'd be like, fuck, man, like I'm in an elevator with so and so. Yeah, there are, but like the majority of them are just regular, people that like that. To me, it's like I've never even asked for autographs from people. Like I don't have any of those. I just never really. It was never my thing, to like, treat them like anything different. As I get older, maybe that's not how my son, like, I might do that more, but to me, it was just like, hey, they do their job, I do my job, and I go home, they go home, and go back to work the next day. And so I never looked at it as oh my God, so and so is, it's not, it's just not the way I've operated. So, but but I think as you go through time, you realize that, like I said, most guys are just pretty normal and pretty regular dudes. And,
absolutely. One thing that, looking through your portfolio, I noticed, comparing it to social media, like, so you and I have had this conversation before about how your personal work is like this part of you that you're just kind of subconsciously letting out, and I've noticed a lot of your stuff, just kind of like your personal stuff that you post on social media and things like that, has a lot to deal with your son. And I've noticed a little bit of it in your portfolio too, of like the way you capture youth.
Okay.
It's really interesting if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I guess I never, to me, when Instagram first started, to me, it was just like something to me, I didn't look at it as a portfolio piece. It was more like more about me as a person. Like, hey, how do you get to know me? And I was like, and that was, maybe I would change that. Nah, I'm not so sure. I think about that sometimes. Like, should I just delete all my personal stuff and make a professional Instagram? But I don't know. To me, it's like when I go to meetings or whatnot, if I'm having a conversation, to me, yes, somebody's hiring me for my work, but I've always thought that's, people hire you for who you are, like, the kind of person. And to me, it's like, if I was hiring somebody, I want to know a little bit more about them, more than just their professional life. I want to know, like, how they are as a dad, and how they are as a friend, or how they are as a whatever. And I just, kind of, to me, it's like I look at that, again, I think it's a personal thing. So, so when I posted stuff with Luke and my wife and whatnot, and, to me, it's just like here's an opening to, who I am, and, make your own judgments and this, and obviously some work there. So, but yeah, I've always been intrigued with just the spirit of sport, just the competition and just the dedication and yes, so yeah, shooting younger kids and just seeing the love of it. Cause like, as you get, when you get into the professional, it becomes a business, it becomes a little bit more, it's different than just but yeah, I mean, when you get around Little League and you get around kids who, that kid golf, that young kid, the golf story, I think you're, one of them referring to, is like, really special where, and you look back at yourself as a kid, when you get into sports, it's, it is about, the teamwork aspect. And it's not about like, $1 million salaries. It's about just the coach who's the leader, and you get this group of people, and you have this dedication, and you put yourself out there, and then you work with a team, and you realize. And so, yeah, I've always now gravitated to, I really like shooting, youth sports a lot. Because it really just kind of, encapsulate the high school stuff. Just like it is what sports really is to me, and why I've always loved it is just there's something about it, and you really see it come out in droves when you shoot younger kids, and the excitement and and also the disappointment when you lose, and the excitement when you win, and just like little kids hanging out. But that the kids golf story I did, where I focused on this one 6-year-old kid. And when I first got into it, I was like, he must be pushed by his dad, like, but you realize like some of these kids are just born. They just love it. And every one of those kids that from that golf story I did was every parent I talked to was like, at 2 years old, my son or my daughter just put a golf club in their hand. They just wanted to play. And it really just shows you, like, there's, so many people are just born with this, someone that's born with that, that ability or that love of something that pursues, that pushes them into a, to be good at something. And that, and it's fun to see, because like, shooting that story was great. And, it was like, and like, I do a fair amount of stuff as a high school in Brooklyn that I do a fair amount of work with. And I love those assignments, honestly. I really love just, that spirit that, like, there's no money involved. And it's just like, and I remember as a kid playing on, I was the idiot kid who was diving around cement to stickball games. Like, it was, to me, it was like, if you're going to do it, you do it, and you just do it right, and you do it as hard as you can. And when you get to the professional work, you realize that, hey, I'm sure they're thinking about like, hey man, if I dive and I hurt myself, there's a contract, or, college senior who's like, hey, I'm not going to play that bowl game because I got to, so it's a little different than a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old playing. It's there's no thought of that. So it's pure just, hey, this is for the love of the game kind of thing. And I do, and I like I said, I really do enjoy being around that. And, and more of my assignments, I hope, down the road are, more geared to like just more of the spirit of sport than, the big event. I mean, I've always liked the big event, but, you realize at a point there's, it's sport to sports, and competition is competition. It doesn't matter what age you are. So.
And we were just recently at the Super Bowl together.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
I mean, it was good. I mean, that's, I still, like, I went to 2 Super Bowls when I was a kid, and the Super Bowl Sunday was always like a very, very special day. Even before I started shooting, it was. So I went to 2 when I was 1. I went when I was 9, and I went when I was 11. And I was around it. Like I said, my dad's partner at the time. He was. So I would go to these games and be in the. I would go to parties when I was a kid and get autographs, and I was like one of these. Not that many kids were around back then, and so it was always a very special day. And I mean, my dad, watched the games every Sunday, and then. When I first my first Super Bowl I shot when I was 20. So, and then I shot 26 of them in a row from that point on, and then I missed a few. And there's a whole a story there, but and then I shot the last 2 or so. So now I'm up to like 28. So yeah, they're just they're special. I mean, they're special days, and I got to bring my wife this year as my runner, as you know, and so that was fun. That was
cool.
yeah, it was fun to see through her eyes, and even when I bring assistants to I've always it's always fun to bring somebody. You get a little jaded about certain things, but it is always fun to see when you can bring an assistant or a runner to a game and just see it through their eyes and their perspective, and like I said, then getting the game wasn't great to me until like maybe one sequence in Mahomes when Mahomes turns to me and goes absolutely, and I ended up getting the cover of that. So that's a cool thing to have, and but yeah, it's Super Bowls, it's still fun. I mean, I can't like I said, there's things that you always it's a fun day. It's a you see guys that and you maybe don't see for a while, and it's fun to just chit chat with them before the game and not, and it's again, Super Bowl Sunday was always a very special day to me, and so it's.
I feel like Super Bowl is one of those being the second one and experiencing what that's like compared to a normal everyday Sunday game is so unique, and being there with you guys and learning from you guys is always really fun.
Yeah, it's actually the easiest game I shoot. At least the ones I've done, because even the years I did with ESPN and then the last few for Sports Illustrated was so you got 5 guys there.
Yeah. I
just sat in the end zone the whole game. I didn't have to move. So it's like
it's like allowing it to come to you.
There's nothing. You don't really have too many decisions to make. So to me, it's always like one of the easier games I shoot. It's just the pressure is obviously there because you can't mess up. But there's days like where I'm maybe the only person at the game, or maybe another photographer where you're running around the field like a crazy person and you're up and down. You can't miss this. And so from a game that's the easiest to shoot as far as physical easy, which at this age in my life, it's nice to sometimes just hey, I got I don't have to make because those are games where you're shooting where you're the only guy there, and you're just constantly mentally just like where should I be? Should I be here? Should I go down? Should I be on the defensive side? Should I be on the offensive side? And it's a mental exhaustion trying to constantly be on the right in the right part of the field, and you just you debate yourself and you're going back and forth and so it is nice to shoot those games where you're covered from all angles, and there's only you just have to worry about your little spot, your little angles. So it's from it always, to me, it's always funny because I'm like, it's probably the easiest game I work as far as from like I said, from a physical mental standpoint, just but there's the pressure of if it comes my way, you can't not miss.
Right. Because they'll be like, that end zone was yours, Rob.
Right, exactly. You just can't say, because there's other times during you're shooting and you just hey, you make the wrong move, you're in the wrong spot, somebody intercepts the ball, and there's nothing you can do. It's just you made the decision, and there's nothing you can do. But so there's part of that goes on with that. Like I said, physically, it's easier, but you just can't miss the big shot when it's in your lap.
Yeah, I always feel like those situations, like being at the Super Bowl and leaving it, I'm always like, they should have some sort of sitcom based on the life of a sports photographer.
I believe me, there's something there. There's something there. There's something there. We live in a life that has not been portrayed properly yet. It has not. It's just a whole. nobody knows what we go through. Like nobody understands this. Like, I get into some of these conversations with people and they're like, know what you're talking about. Like,
right.
this, like this, they don't know, like, they don't know you go to the, Kentucky Derby and you get there, on Friday and you set up 20 camera remotes for a race that starts the next day and you get to the race day, you get there, the sun comes up and you set up this many remotes for a horse race that happens in a minute, like nobody knows that, like nobody, nobody understands that, or, or whatever it might be, like, and you can name an event or a sporting, and nobody understands like what the hell is, just like, you just show up, you snap a couple of pictures, and they don't understand, like, Super Bowls, going through security and the whole thing and the whole, what it's like. So I think it has, maybe one day it'll be portrayed properly and someone will do a cool documentary about it. And, maybe so I have talked about, I definitely have talked to people about the Kentucky Derby, because I always thought that was, one of those events where, like, it's like a 2-minute horse race. And a lot of this stuff, and then
I lived in Louisville for like a third of my life. And that was like one of the craziest, funnest weeks in the city.
Yeah. So it's great. I've done a handful, and in the Olympics too, it's another event where what goes into it, from just the technical end of it, just to the actual photography end of it, just the the amount of people and the amount of just like how quickly images are transmitted, and just it's and then just and then you work for basically 3 weeks that on 2 hours of sleep, and you just do it every day. It's I don't know if physically I can do it anymore. It's just I don't know anymore. At least not. I mean, it's so there's definitely something there. There's definitely some sort of, because I obviously we're close to the situation, but I do feel like there's an interest there.
Yeah. The question: when's the last time you shot on film?
Hasn't been that long. It's been that long. I can't remember. It's got to be at least 5 years ago, and I don't even know what I shot, but it's been a long time. It's something that, but I guess I've been thinking about it a lot. So, and I honestly, I've been thinking about it for this baseball season, was bringing out a Mamiya and just to do something, because like I said, I've been home and I've been looking at I've been posting these things on Instagram, some of these transparencies. At least before all this, I was into it, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people just liking to see just old chromes and just the writing on it, and just the whole thing, that because they are a I guess you don't maybe realize it after you shot it that much film, is there's a uniqueness to them. Each transparency in itself is very unique, and it's just not only the picture, but the handwriting on it, or the label that you put on it, and just the marks of the clients that have their little crop marks on it, or the little like percentages on it, and so you get them back, and they take on a whole new meaning as far as a piece of history, let's say. And so it did kind of beyond it, I do think that there's a soul to film that is when you pick up something that has that tangibility to it, it's unlike anything that digitally to me has ever given me back. I've never felt that kind of close to a digital frame as I do some of the film stuff I've shot. And I never had the feeling of like now you see the image right in the back of your camera, but I mean I don't know if I can even describe to you what it was like to fly out to California, shoot a USC game on a Saturday, shoot Bo Jackson with the Raiders on Sunday, shoot 80 rolls of film for the weekend, get on a red-eye flight out of LA back to New York, get to the lab in New Jersey, rush right up from Newark Airport to, a lab in Jersey to get the film processed. I maybe went to, take a nap for a few hours, but the film was ready at, 2 p.m, whatever, and get back to the lab. And then, that first box you got, and you just, you're like, I'm able to get to the office and I'll but you ultimately had to look through at least a couple of boxes to see if your exposures are right. But that feeling of getting to the light box in the lab and just taking the first box out and putting them on the light box and just seeing, that film kind of pop. I mean, it was like Christmas almost every time I got the film back, it was like Christmas morning. It was just like, it was always so special. And then you got in the car, so you look through a few boxes and I got to get back to the office and do it properly. But then you'd be in the car and you get to a stoplight and you start looking at the film at the light, in your car, you're just like taking, it was just like, like having candy that you just had to keep looking at. And, it was like, you didn't know if stuff was like exposed properly. I mean, you had an idea it was, but it was always like maybe I was a third stop off that day or half stop off, but like, and it's something you got better at over time, but it was always like, it was always an unknown until you actually saw did the lab process it properly? Did they really push it plus 1 1/3? Did they listen to, did they follow all my instructions? And then was it sharp? I mean, it was like, we're talking, sometimes the early on stuff was manual and, the autofocus wasn't as good. So it was all about that. But it's hard to describe what that feeling is to like, to shoot unless you shot film or shot a lot of film to understand what that was like. And it was special. And so it does, even though it's not practical, but there is a part of me that wants to do a little bit more of it, or really maybe even maybe more than more of it. So like really, I've always kind of like felt like I feel like it's time. I feel like it's time for people to take a little bit of a step back to and just appreciate the art form of it all, because there is something like, I've seen some old Jordan stuff. His documentary just came out, and when you start seeing that stuff on film, there really is something special.
Different, yeah.
It just is something. There's something there, and it just there's layers of textures and the colors and the soulness, and I mean, you can modify a digital image. I know but it just it's like anything else. It's not film. It's not the thing. It's layers of this and that, but it's not the real thing, It's not the real thing.
One thing that I started doing with some photographers that I've been working with was I noticed that it's mainly sports photographers, and it's kind of on the younger side, so they're just kind of getting started out with it. Or they've been in it for about as long as I have, like 3 or 4 years, and they you're shooting constantly, you're expecting your frame rate to catch everything, and you're always I know definitely, like I was guilty of this too. It was just overshooting at the beginning. And something I recommended a couple of them was to either get a film camera or somehow find one and use that as a means to help you slow down, because I feel like that's outside of the tangibility of a film image. It really helps you slow down.
I couldn't agree more. I just think that whatever it takes to like I think we all kind of want to get as much stuff and shoot as much, but there's definitely the observation of things that has to be part of the process. Like if you're just shooting and you're just ramoing it, and you're not observing things that are happening. Again, I think I can shoot pretty fast, but I'm at the same time I'm observing everything. I just I've done it a long time, so I feel like I know to other people might look like, oh my God, this guy's just like, and to me, but there's a thought that's going in my head every time I'm shooting, even though it might look from somebody who's observing me be like, well, that guy's just shooting. But but it took a long time to get to that point where it's that speed is very natural to me. But I'm also observing every little movement, or every little thing that's happening around me, behind me, whatever the person I'm shooting, what he's doing. So I'd say whatever it takes to kind of just slow down and process the thing, because like it does take that. Like it does, and I think every image, like when you start looking at your own images and start editing your own images, you realize that hey man, if I just moved a foot to my right, or if I just did this, or I did that, or if I framed this differently, it would have been a much better picture. So I think trying to catch yourself while you're either editing, or I do this while I'm shooting, where I'm actually thinking about, just I'm actually thinking about all those things, just the composition and how it would look better, and how is it, how can I make this frame, something that appeals to me more. And again, that's, again, a lot, but it is fun to shoot the one frame thing. I remember when I was younger too, people would say, hey man, just, I mean, there were guys that would just, they would shoot single frame on even, because that's just the way they operated. They were like, and it was like, and it was cool, like, especially when you're like the manual focus days, where it was just like, you just had to make the one shot. And, but it really does kind of really slow you down, and really start to, but yeah, again, I think that's something that I think I need to go back a little bit, just to like, I think we all need to do that. I think, it's, there's little lessons that I think that would help. I guess, it could definitely help me. I think, there's no way you could ever think that you perfected anything. And so, professional golfers have swing coaches, and
you're always learning.
Professionals, big time singers have, they still practice on their voices. So there's never a point where you could ever say like, hey, I know everything. So if that's one of those things that's a lesson learning kind of a thing, then yeah, I'm ready. I'm like I said, I'm more ready to do that now than I have been in a long time. Because just trying to get the just the reality of it, just trying to do it. But I think I definitely want to.
I have one last thing for you before we hop off here. So one thing I try to do with every episode of the podcast is try to connect your creativity with your everyday life.
Yeah.
So like, if there's something that you could relate your career to, or your photography to, you just being with your family and things like that, what would that be?
I just think I guess the word authenticity is the word that, to me, I mean, I am who I am. I don't try to I'm not a different person outside of my life. I try to make every moment as big, ask my wife about just a simple dinner on a Tuesday night is, we make it, we do it right, I the plating is good, and the whole she kind of makes fun of me, but to me it's just like I try to take every moment and just try to make it as big and real and authentic as it can be. And it's kind of how I live my life, just I don't I mean, you get what I am who I am, and I don't try to I'm probably no different at home than I am on the field or shooting, and my image is I always think that they portray an authenticity to I would want how I live my day-to-day life. I don't think I'm any different than I'm not a different person outside of my home as I am when I'm shooting, and then just there's a realness to how I live my life, and and I think that comes across in my photography. At least that's kind of what I hope does. And but again, I take every moment special. I don't, if I'm at a game or whatever, to me it's always it's always a big deal. I don't try to poo-poo anything. And to me it's and Tuesdays or Sundays or Saturdays are all doesn't it's all the same to me. It's just I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely does.
I am who I am, man. You're looking right at it. It's
I believe that.
Yeah, there's no hidden Rob somewhere. I try to live, try to lay it all out there.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on here for me.
Appreciate you having me. This is great.
Yeah.
No, this is good what you're doing, by the way. This is really cool. I mean, I wish I wish I can do the same thing. This is fun. But, this is. I'm gonna try. I'm definitely gonna try to do some more of this. I think I want to be on the other end of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I want to hear what people have to say. But it's fun to do, But it's cool, and I think what you're doing too on your photography is awesome too. I think it's
dude. Thank you.
I think you're out there. I mean, I think you're just doing what you should be doing, and just experimenting and just having fun and just shooting what you love to do, and it's good to see, and and guys like you are inspiring to me, honestly. It's like, you push me, you know, like, yeah, I'm like,
Wow.
shit, man. Like, God damn, like, but it's cool. Like, part of me is like, God, can you just slow down? Like, I just want to take a break. And, but it's cool to see young guys kind of, push me and see what you guys are doing and the stuff that you're creating. And, old guys like me need a little like kick in the ass sometimes to like make sure that we're staying true to ourselves and we're not just taking it. It's like, you don't want to just like get to a point where you just feel like getting pushed is a good thing. Is what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
And you guys are definitely doing it to me. So.
No, I mean,
and you guys, suck for doing that because, like, because you guys are good. I mean, you guys are really good. Like, it took me a long time to get that good, like, or at least think I'm that good. But I see, I can name a bunch of guys now, but you're talented, and it's awesome to see.
Dude, I appreciate that a lot. Like, it's just really good to be out there with you and all the other guys learning, tricks of the trade and just learning how to be ourselves. Like, that's what I liked about being around you a good bit of the time was I definitely see the authenticity.
Yeah. It's just like, like I said, guys helped me out. I always go back. Guys really helped me when I was starting, and I've always like paying it forward kind of thing. It's like, hey man, you got a question, someone's got, I got no, I'm not hiding anything from anybody. You ask a question, I got no secrets. Like, here you go. I'll tell you exactly how this went down. And again, like I said, I give a lot of people when I first started, did the same thing to me. So it's a pay it forward kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the advice I have for anybody is like, hey man, if you could help somebody out, you know what, help them out, and it may not work out for you at that point, but there's a karma that goes around with that too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being on, man, and stay safe.
Stay here.
And hopefully see you soon.
Let's hope. A crowded stadium anytime soon is. It might be a little.
Might be some months.
But, well, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. Thanks, dude.
All right, brother. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.